I thought I had simplified my bag. My carry average ladder looked perfect. 10-yard gaps, clean spacing, no overlap. On paper, my 8-club setup looked engineered. But then I pulled up my dispersion chart, and the ovals, they told a different story. This is 3-Putt Pauly and the author of the book Playable Golf. I'm a regular golfer using data to make better decisions and improve my game. Now let's get into it. Last episode I said the bag stops being tradition and starts being architecture. Now it's time to actually redesign it. So I ran a launch monitor session on my Mevo Plus to measure what was actually happening. No course or wind or target pressure, just the ball, the club, my carry, my dispersion. The goal wasn't to manufacture yardages or hit hero shots. I just wanted to figure out what each swing actually delivers. Full swings first, then partials. And when I laid all of that out in Excel and overlaid the dispersion ovals, something pretty clear started to emerge. And it wasn't an emotional thing, it was structural. So after all that mapping, this is what was left in the bag. The driver, 5-wood, 9-wood, 6-iron, 8-iron, pitching wedge, sand wedge, and the putter. That's it. 7 full swing clubs plus the putter. And I didn't sit down and try to design an 8-club bag. I didn't start with that number. I started with carry averages and dispersion ovals, and I just removed the overlap. It could have landed on 9 clubs, it could have been 10. If the spacing had justified it, I would have kept more clubs. But when I stripped away the redundancy, when I stopped defending clubs just because they're supposed to be there, that's what remained. The number wasn't a goal, it was just where the data landed. So let's walk through this backwards quickly because I want to show you the logic. At the long end of the bag, I had congestion. The 4-iron, the 5-iron, the 9-wood, they were all living in the same carry neighborhood. The 9-wood gave me cleaner front-to-back spacing and more predictable contact than either long iron. So the 4 and the 5 came out. Then the middle of the bag, this is where the 7-iron had to answer some uncomfortable questions. On paper, the 7-iron looks like it belongs, but in practice, it was sitting right on top of the 8-iron's territory, and its dispersion wasn't doing me any favors. Then the short end. When I looked at the 8-iron, the 9-iron, and the pitching wedge window, the 9 wasn't creating any new space. It was compressing existing space, so the 9 comes out too. What's important here is the order. I didn't start by saying I want 8 clubs. I just removed the overlap, one cluster at a time. And when I stepped back, 7 full swing clubs were left, plus my putter. So once the full swing ladder was clean, I didn't immediately celebrate it because full swings alone don't build a scoring system. They just establish anchor points. So I went back into FlightScope and started mapping variations of each iron and wedge. Full, choke swing, relaxed swing, and quarter swing. And I measured carry on every one of them. Now here where something interesting happened. I used to carry what I called a half swing, arms parallel, kind of a 9 o'clock, clock face type swing. For a while, I thought that was a necessary tool. It felt like a real swing type, something distinct from the others. But when I put it on the monitor and actually measured it, 2 things showed up. First, my 9 o'clock swing was just inconsistent, and the carry window was nearly identical to my relaxed swing, which I felt like I had more control of. So I'm looking at 2 inputs giving me the same output, and one of them is less reliable. That's an easy call. I removed the half swing. The relaxed swing gave me the same yardage window with tighter dispersion, so why would I keep both? If 2 swings live in the same window, I'm keeping the one that behaves better. So that left me with 4 calibrated versions per scoring club: full swing, choke swing, relaxed swing, and quarter swing. And once those were mapped, I laid them into the matrix, full swings first, then stacked partials underneath. On paper, it looked clean, almost too clean to be honest. Once the variations were mapped, I built the carry ladder in Excel. Every full swing, choke, relaxed, and quarter, stacked in order of average carry. When you look at it that way, it's satisfying. 10-yard spacing, logical progression, no obvious holes. If I stopped there, I could have convinced myself the problem was solved. But scoring doesn't happen in a spreadsheet, it happens in Windows. For most golfers, myself very much included, that 75 to 125 yard range is where strokes are gained and lost. Some define that in the 150 range, but a lot of pros intentionally lay up to 100 when they shoot because it's a nice clean number. However you define it, this is the scoring zone, so I zoomed in. In the full bag, inside of 100 to 125 yards, I have 4 different clubs capable of living there. Not because I've earned tour level precision, just because they exist in the bag. When you look at the matrix, you can see it clearly. The green zone, 100 to 125 yards. The blue zone is 75 to 100 yards. In the 14 club configuration, the decision density stacks quickly. Multiple full swings, multiple chokes, relaxed options layered underneath. In the 8 club bag, that same window compresses. Instead of 4 clubs competing for the same territory, I'm down to 3 meaningful options. Now, 4 versus 3 doesn't sound dramatic when you say it out loud, but once you account for the swing variations, that's a significant reduction in branches. And here's the part the ladder doesn't show you. The averages suggest clean spacing, but when you overlay the dispersion ovals, especially in that 100 to 125 window, you can see the separation isn't fully owned yet. There's visible space between clusters, not because the math is wrong, but because my ball striking hasn't earned that precision yet. That's just where I'm at right now, and that something else comes up that I genuinely didn't expect. The shorter swings, the relaxed and quarter variations, had noticeably tighter left to right dispersion, smaller ovals, less lateral spread. And that kind of caught me off guard a little, because controlled swings were actually more accurate laterally than the full swings. That's not a feeling, that's actually measured. So now the picture becomes more honest. The full bag gives me more options inside the scoring window. The 8 club bag gives me fewer branches, and dispersion tells me which of those branches I actually control. So when you zoom back out from the scoring window, something else becomes obvious. It's not just about yardage gaps, it's about branches. The full 14 club bag gives me roughly 9 scoring clubs. And for each of those clubs, I can apply calibrated variations of full, choke, relax, and quarter. Even if you're conservative and only consider 4 meaningful swing types per club, that's 9 clubs and 4 variations, that's 36 potential shot branches. 36, that's a very wide tree. Now compare that to the 8 club config. Inside the scoring portion of the bag, I'm working with 4 primary scoring clubs, same calibrated variations, so 4 clubs and 4 variations is 16. If you include a couple of situational overlaps, you're realistically looking at around 18 meaningful branches. 18, that's half. You can see it in the matrix, the full bag spreads outward, the 8 club compresses inward. Now, that doesn't guarantee execution, that's for sure. It doesn't suddenly make me more consistent, but it does reduce the cognitive load before I even take the club back. Because here's the thing, if you have 4 different ways to hit 100 yards, your brain just doesn't relax, it negotiates. And negotiation introduces hesitation. The 8 club system doesn't eliminate error, but it does eliminate redundancy. And I think that distinction matters more than most people realize. Let me give you a real example. Let's say it's 102 yards, because 102 is where things get interesting for me. Full bag in hand, I look at the chart, 7-iron choke, 102, right on the number. Now on paper, that's the answer, but my 7-iron hasn't exactly been the model of consistency lately, so I hesitate. I glance at the 8-iron full at 105. That feels safer. Club up, good beginner logic. And then, and this is the honest part, my brain keeps scrolling. I notice other relaxed options higher up the ladder. Now, I'm not just choosing, I'm negotiating. Do I trust the 7? Do I protect against being short? Do I hit the 8 and take a little off of it? At some point, I literally catch myself thinking, okay, now I'm being indecisive. Now, the same 102, 8 club bag, I look, 8-iron full, 105, done. There's no scrolling, there's no defensive thinking, there's no backup option to compare it to, it's just the cleanest branch available. Now, that doesn't mean I hit it perfectly, it just means the decision arrived faster, and that difference is subtle, but it's real. So let's slow down for a second, hard for me to do, I know. This was one controlled session. A launch monitor, a bucket of balls, a spreadsheet. It wasn't a tournament round. It wasn't a month of scoring data. It was just me measuring what actually happens on one day. And here's what I think showed. When I stop defending clubs just because they're supposed to be there, the structure cleans itself up. When I measure partial swings instead of guessing them, some of them behave a lot better than I expected. And when I zoom into that 75 to 125 yard window, I can see pretty clearly that my decision density in the full bag is heavier than my consistency really supports. But here's what it didn't do. It didn't fix my swing. It didn't suddenly make 102 automatic. It didn't magically close that 100 to 120 yard dispersion gap, because dispersion isn't solved by rearranged tools, it's solved by better strikes. And I'm still working on that. Probably will be for a long time. If the numbers show that I haven't earned clean separation yet, that's not a criticism, it's just information. And I'd rather have honest information than comfortable assumptions. And when I say my current 8 club configuration, I'm not suggesting 8 is the magic number. 8 is just where my reduction landed based on actual dispersion. Now that could change. If my dispersion tightens, more tools might earn their way back in the bag. Right now, this configuration removes noise, and removing noise makes it easier to see what actually needs work. So this wasn't a round of golf. There were no targets, no win or scorecard. This was just measurement, which means the real question hasn't even been asked yet. What happens when this configuration leaves the launch monitor and shows up on the course? Does the reduced decision tree actually change tempo? Does faster commitment improve strike? Does clarity translate to scoring? I don't know yet. That's the next step. But here's what I do know. When the bag matches dispersion, the mental noise drops. And when the noise drops, execution becomes easier to evaluate honestly. not because the swing suddenly improves, but because the doubt gets quieter. So, if you're curious, here's something simple you can try. Map your full swings, look at your dispersion, zoom in to 75 to 125, and ask yourself, are all those clubs earning separate real estate, or are some of them just there because they're always been there? Now, if you don't own a launch monitor, that's totally fine. I'm fortunate to have one at home. But a lot of local golf shops, teaching facilities, and small businesses, they have hitting bays you can rent by the hour. So go book a session, support a local shop, bring a notebook, hit 10 balls per club, write down your carries, and look at the grouping. Here's a small little pro tip from someone who learned this the hard way. Before you start at the pro shop, ask whether the launch monitor lets you email yourself the session data. Some do, some don't. So if it doesn't, be ready to take pictures of the screen or write things down, because nothing's worse than hitting a great mapping session and realizing you walked out with nothing recorded. Ask me how I know. You don't need tour level data, you just need honest numbers. You don't have to go 8, you don't have to go copy my configuration. Just test your own spacing. See what the data actually says, because tools aren't default, they're earned. And in the next episode is where we take this onto the course and find out if clarity actually survives the pressure. So as I like to say, bad swings are part of the deal, but good data tells you what to do next. Thanks for watching.